Lincoln University Alumni and Friends Book Club, a book discussion with alumni author Dr. Gwynette Ford Lacy, class of 72-73, the first African American woman to receive a PhD in industrial relations from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's going to present her book, Madam PhD.
My mother was born in DC, which is very rare. I was born in DC and my children were born in DC. So we have three generations of people who were born in DC. Decided to be a fly block girl. Now, people from DC know what a block girl is. A block girl is like LL Cool J around the way girl. The way we dress, the way we dance, the way we talk. So I was a DC block girl in junior high school.
Kind of hard to believe, Gwynette, that you were a
I was
block.
a DC block girl. I liked
Kind
to
of hard to believe.
dance. I used to go on a show called Tina Rama, that's in the book.
Mm.
Tina Rama was like American Bandstand before American Bandstand came out. And I would go on. The guys liked taking me because I knew how to hand dance, the DC hand dance. Um, but I was also smart and I was in honors. So that made me very popular. Went on to McKinley Tech. And there's a picture of McKinley. It's beautiful, isn't it? It still looks like that. Looks like a Southern college. So I went on to McKinley High. At the bottom is I met this guy when I was in the 10th grade named George Lacy. Most of you know who that is. Um, and George was out of school and he had this souped up burgundy GTO. The GTO is a character in the book. The GTO got me out of a jam. Yo, what do I mean by that? If you were good in sports in Washington, whoever you played, you got beat up. Am I right, Greg?
There was usually a fight after the game.
Yeah, fights after the game. And so this GTO used to get us out of those jams. All right, so I graduated from McKinley in 1969, and I was looking for a college to go to school. And I wound up at Lincoln. Lincoln University chapter is the longest chapter in the book. I have a lot to say about Lincoln. It was not my first choice, but I went to Temple the summer before to orientation, and I didn't like Temple for various reasons. Wound up not going to Temple and coming to Lincoln. And I got a scholarship. I called them and asked if I still had the scholarship. And they said, come on, you don't have a room, but we'll keep your scholarship. So I didn't have a room. And I wound up rooming in New Women's Dorm eventually. Um, and they, for work study, I was on the desk at night. Oh, I was the curfew enforcer. So my job was to lock the doors at 12 o'clock. But I didn't lock the doors. I let the women come back late for a few minutes. Anyway, I gave them some grace. And so I made some friends at the dormitory at Lincoln. All right, anybody who went to Lincoln, which is a lot of people went to Lincoln here. Okay, you know that we protested everything, didn't we, Wait? I don't know about Greg. I don't know if you, we protested everything in Lincoln from the food to the dormitories to the curfews. And so they protested that they didn't want a curfew, that we were grown and we didn't need a curfew at night. So I lost my job on the desk and I wound up working at the library. So that's the picture at the bottom was me and where I worked. I worked there in the day and studied at night, so I spent a lot of hours at Lincoln's Library, a lot of hours there. I wound up pledging AKA, and I was also on the scroller court and the Kappa court. Okay, so while we pledged for a year, I say a year, 2 semesters in the spring and in the fall. And as a result, I decided to do my service project. We had service projects at Lincoln. So my service project was with some students from the church that was down the street from Lincoln. And I would bring the kids up. The AKAs would serve them lunch. I would bring the kids up on Thursdays and we would go over math problems. Decided the last day of class to have a party for my kids. And the party was to be at the Student Union building. And wait, you can cut your mic on because you're in this story. Okay, so we were in the Student Union building the Thursday before the last day of class, and a protest was planned for the next day. And the protest was supposed to be about the Vietnam War. The president had decided to draft men out of college to go into the war. So you know that did not set well at Lincoln. And we were going to protest on in Oxford the next day on Friday. So I said, okay, this will be our last day I called them my kids. I threw a party for them. I had goodie bags. So I got up that morning and packed up everything. I said, I'm not coming back to the dorm. I went straight from class to meet my kids. Didn't know that they had closed the school and that the Klan was on their way to Lincoln. So I was in the room with my kids, and Wade Madison happened to come by. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working with my kids." He said, "Don't you know that the school is closed? You need to be off campus within an hour." So I said, "What?" So I got the kids together and I said, "We're going to have a race back to the church. I'm going to race you all back to the church." So that was my idea how I would get the kids back to the church because we needed to get off campus. So we ran past the dormitory where there was Gil Scott Heron standing at the door of my dorm with a shotgun. I said, "Oh my God, we're in trouble." So I asked him, "What are you doing with the shotgun?" He said, nobody is gonna come past this dorm and bother our women." He said, "Gwynette, you got 5 minutes to get out of here." And so Paula Blunt was usually my ride home. And so I ran into Paula. She said, "You got 5 minutes to get back here because I'm leaving. And if you're not back, I'm going to leave you." So I ran the kids to the church and came back, got one bag and 2 scarves, and got in Paula's car, and we were headed home. Well,
Hey,
we had to go through Oxford.
Gwynette,
Yeah,
you need to mention that the church was down to Lincoln Village, right?
yeah, it was in the
So
village.
that was not around the corner. That took some time.
Well, no, we ran.
I know you ran, but it's not like it was right there.
Yeah, we ran, and I stood on the curb to watch the kids run into the church and ran back to the dorm.
It was a lot of running that
That
day.
was a lot of running that day so I could catch my ride. So we get to Oxford, and guess what? Here comes the Klan up the street. So we would never drive through Oxford. We always cut off through the hilly area to get to Route 95 going south. So we cut off of Route 1 onto that hilly area, and the Klan
272.
ran after the car, and we heard some shots, but nothing, we didn't get hit, and the car didn't get hit. But that was our way out of a bad situation with the Klan at the end of my freshman year. So we didn't have finals that year.
No, no,
They
we
gave
didn't.
us the grades that we had up to that point. But that is my that was my scariest moments at Lincoln. And as a result, George did not want me to come back to Lincoln. But I came back to Lincoln and finished in 3 years. Okay, so there are some of my AKA pictures after I went over. George was a fixture at Lincoln. A lot of people thought he was a student, but he wasn't. He was a Howard man.
Gwynette, I need to mention one thing.
Yeah.
Every Friday at 3 o'clock, that GTO came through the arch.
It wasn't every Friday, but
Every
it was a lot of
it
Fridays.
was a lot of because I looked at my watch, but we would see the GTO come through the arch. I said, Lacey's here, it must be 3 o'clock.
But here is my graduation pictures. They're in black and white. I made my graduation dress. It was announced that I would be getting the departmental award, which was paid for by the Wall Street Journal. So I graduated at the top of my class, magna cum laude, and received the Wall Street Journal award, partially as a result of Greg tutoring me in math. Okay, so I teased George that I graduated before he did. Lincoln's graduation is always in early May, right? And
First
so
weekend in May.
first weekend in May, and Howard's is the day before Mother's Day. So I beat him to graduation, and that's his graduation pictures. We decided to leave Washington. Big decision. George wanted to go to law school, and we left Washington and moved to Wisconsin. A big difference between Lincoln and the University of Wisconsin. I don't think I need to say anymore. The first year that we were there, um, I got my MBA. And those are some of my MBA friends at the bottom. We lived in this little apartment building at the top. Here we are at the law school with snow up to your waist almost. Um, but the University of Wisconsin, let me put it this way, was cold in more ways than one. I said, well, what do I do? Didn't have any kids. I said, I'm going to stay in school. And so I decided to get a PhD, and that's where the title of the book comes in. George graduated a little before I did this time. He graduated and um, about a semester earlier than most law students, and he came home, and I followed soon after. I was expecting, and we came back to Washington. I decided that I was going to start my family. I had plenty of time to finish my PhD, and they let you go to do your research elsewhere. So we came home,
You know that.
and then I started my research,
You did what?
and I went to Howard to work. Howard hired me at the School of Business while I was doing my PhD. And then at the bottom, I talk about all of the trials and tribulations in the book. That is my mother, Katrina, and I when I was celebrated defending my dissertation. Now, why do I look so bad with the scarf? I was very, very sick. And they say that when you are working on a PhD, you either get sick or you go crazy. So I guess I chose the least of the two. I got sick. So I was very sick when that picture was taken. I had something called sarcoidosis that I knew very little about. So that pretty much tells the story of Madam PhD. Why did I call it Madam? I like the French language. Um, and so rather than just call the book PhD, I called it Madam PhD. And it was just my love of French that gave me the title. And there I am during graduation with my PhD robe. I finally got it. There I am with my colleagues and Vanessa Williams, who was invited to the campus, giving away scholarships at the School of Business. And finally, the last picture is of me waving goodbye to Howard at the end of my tenure. I was at Howard for 40 years.
You member questions. I guess like what prompted you to write the book?
Okay, let me talk about that.
Okay.
We had a grant at Howard under what president? Under Clinton that took us all over the country. And we would be in an airport or on a train or whatever, and I would tell these funny stories about DC. And I was the only female faculty member at the School of Business from Washington. And so my colleagues that I was traveling with would say, you need to write a book about growing up in DC. I did some research and I found out that there weren't many Native Washingtonian autobiographies. And so I decided to write the book. It's been a challenge, but I decided to write the book at the behest of my colleagues at Howard. So that's one of the questions on the list has been adopted by Penguin Books to be interpreted into three languages. And Penguin is going to take over the publication of the book. The three languages are French, Spanish, and Mandarin. So it will be interpreted into three languages and sold worldwide.
Another question we had, I mean, reading the book, I was very impressed by your tenacity. It made me think about my own college experience. I wish I had worked as hard as you did.
Oh, you worked hard enough.
I mean, I graduated, but so someone asked, do you wish you would have had a lighter course load or maybe a lighter course load or workload and maybe got to enjoy college more because you were working so hard to graduate early and going back and forth to meet up with Lacey? Do you wish maybe you would have maybe had a lighter course load?
Well, no, I don't have any regrets. I had a good time at Lincoln. I had a ball at Lincoln. So I don't have any regrets. Yes, it was hard work. But George was 3 years ahead of me, and I didn't think he was going to wait much longer. So I got out of there.
I don't have any questions, but I thoroughly enjoyed the book, and I kept saying there's so many parallels. I'm a classmate of Wade's,
Oh, good.
and so we were on campus together.
Oh, yeah.
And freshman year, because me and Wade came to Lincoln in the fall of '67 and graduated in '71.
Yep. A
Um,
year.
And I think my junior year, which you were on campus, I was president of the Women's Students Association. And I just want to say, during all of those protests,
Yep.
since I was president of the Women's Students Association, they would pull me out of class
Yep.
and ask me what is going on and just trying and get me, like asking me, well, what do you suggest to get this in under control, especially about the issue with the curfew. When Ray and I came to campus, our curfew was 10:30 during the week and
Yep.
12 o'clock
That's
on
12
right.
on the
Friday and
weekend,
Saturday.
right?
So our class, and along with the class of 70, we did protest our freshman year and got it modified. And then your class came and you all weren't
We
even
did
happy with
away with
that.
it. But
So
I lost my
we
job.
but by then we had enough women on campus, I
Right.
think, to really push the university to treat us equally. Because we kept saying the men don't have a curfew. And so that's just not fair. And so we
Yeah.
finally had
Yeah.
enough women to
Absolutely.
make a difference.
Hmm.
And so a lot of things that happened, I said, "Oh my gosh," you know, I remember that, and just a lot of parallel. I got married in '72. I married my college sweetheart at Lincoln. We're divorced, but we got married in
Okay.
'72.
I
Then he
married in
went to
70.
Howard Law School
Yeah.
on the Clio program with Wade, and we had parties and stuff. The Lincoln students and the other students in the school used to always talk about how special and how bonded the Lincoln students used to be.
That's
We
Absolutely.
would be
very
at
much
parties
so.
telling stories and laughing and carrying on, and they were like,
Hmm.
"Oh,
What's going on at
don't
Lincoln? Why are y'all so close? That's right.
yeah, why
That's
are you
right.
so
That's true.
close?" And we would say to them, well, we were a small group and we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And so you didn't have a choice to be close. And it was an environment where you could be close.
That's true.
So, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just like took me right back.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like you have a question from your daughter. So go ahead, Miss
Janie.
Guyana.
Well, it's not a question, but it's just giving my perspective as my mom's child reading the book. It gave a lot of aha moments of a lot of experiences growing up. And we're like, why did she do that? And we will always ask, like, why are you doing that? And parents will always just say, just do what I tell you to do. Petition the DC cheerleading competition at Coolidge High School. And since we won, my friends and I wanted to celebrate afterwards and like take pics.
And that I snatched her out of there because when we were in school, if you won, you would be in a fight. It was a fight afterwards.
But mom didn't say that part, she just snatched us up. And we were just wondering why. And we were like, why? We want to celebrate. We want to celebrate. So there's a lot of little things in the book where I was just like, oh, that's why mom did that. I get it now.
That's a good story.
She has a
Yeah.
new perspective now on why mom made some of those decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, Anybody else want to say? I have a question or say anything?
Okay, you have a statement, a question on the list you gave me. What message do I have uh, that I want people to take away from my story?
Yes.
And I thought long and hard about that. I had a student who is the um, representative of Ludacris, and he read the book and he suggested that I have a hook for the book.
Mhm.
And he said it should be something that people take away from your book. So I took the letters of my degree, PhD, and I gave a formula for success, and that's perseverance, hope, and determination. If you have those three things, you can do anything in life you want to do.
Mhm.
That has resonated very well with the reviewers and with the critics. Um, I have been overjoyed
Hey, baby.
with the response from the critics of the book. Um, I cry over all of them. and that they get what I was saying, that perseverance, hope, and determination will take you far.
Look,
Yes.
another comment. I found the chapters that you wrote to the information that you wrote to Lincoln. I saw that as a love letter to Lincoln.
Yeah.
Um, because even though you talked about some things, some of the negatives, you always still made sense, and also it showed how if you stick in it, and that you still can, something good can come out of a bad situation. And also a small school like Lincoln, and we were told that by our faculty members at Lincoln, that if you can get through Lincoln, you're prepared for anything. And some of us
Absolutely.
doubted that.
Yeah.
And I found that to be true. Um, Throughout my career, I got my master's degree at Howard, and then I went to work at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, which was very similar to your
Similar
experience
with
in Madison. And then I taught at North Carolina Central University, which loved me to death because I had such a dedication to HBCUs
use.
that they, even though
Absolutely.
I wasn't a graduate of them, they welcomed me and said I had such a positive um, attitude in the way I worked with students and encouraged them and everything. And then I went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the same thing
Different
again
experience.
was like magnificent for you. So,
Yep.
like I said, you our past was similar, but your it was just so positive, and it was a great book in support of not only Lincoln but the
BC.
HBCU
Absolutely.
experience, and that's
Absolutely.
so important.
I'm hoping that all of the young people in America would read, especially African American students who are going through many changes nowadays. Um, and I've been trying to get the message out to the public schools. Um, and it's just, I'm scratching the surface. I feel so frustrated that not enough of our young people are reading the book, because I tell them that with perseverance, hope, and determination, you can get through anything. That's what we learned
Mhm.
at Lincoln. You could
Yep,
get through anything.
anything.
And the experience at Lincoln helped me get through the experience at Wisconsin. If you all read the book, you'll see it was not a cakewalk in terms of, I
Mm.
skipped over a lot in my presentation, but a lot went on at at the University of Wisconsin. I was doubted, all kinds of things happened, but Lincoln told you, and McKinley, I have to say McKinley Tech too, and Elliott told you, if you stick with it and you have hope, you can get through anything.
Yep.
Yep.
And I like the whole idea of the Lincoln community, even having Roscoe Lee Brown come back and do the commencement address.
Yep.
I wish I could have been there to hear Roscoe
Oh,
Brown
that
come and
speech
speak.
still resonates with me.
Yeah.
He was such an eloquent speaker. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, it has been great getting to know you, Dr. Lacy. We started communicating because of the book. When you mailed me the book and then reading the book, it was awesome. And then speaking with you last year when I highlighted you for Women's History Month, it has been great getting to know you, and I truly enjoyed the book.
Yeah, we have
Um,
become very good friends.
yes, ma'am.
Oh.
I wish I had your work ethic, but absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So anything else before we close out?
Yeah, I
It's
just want
election.
to add one thing. This is weight that a chance meeting at Woodward and Northrop resulted in a over 50-year friendship that I am so thankful for.
Absolutely, Wade.
And it was a chance meeting because if that woman had remembered that you were going to Lincoln and I was at Lincoln, we
Abs-
never would have we would have known each other, but it wouldn't have been the same.
It wouldn't have been the same. Absolutely. Thank you for your friendship.
Hmm.
If you don't mind, I've been the silent partner through this whole conversation. You and I go way back.
Yep.
The reason I'm on this call is because you and I go way back.
Yep.
We shared a number of experiences together. I used the DC Lincoln University as a springboard, and I left and I moved to California.
Yeah.
And California kind of opened my eyes up to life and the world itself. And I didn't allow it to stop. I did spend some time at Berkeley with Wes Thompson, if you remember Wes Thompson,
Yeah, I remember
uh,
Wes.
in the math department. Yeah,
Yeah.
he and his wife Brenda. So, and then of course after California, I moved to Hawaii like 20 years ago. So things that life still goes on no matter what.
Well, we've been following you. I know I've been following your progress.
I've been having a great time.
Yeah, I
It's
know
been
you are.
wonderful.
Thank you guys. We had a great, Dr. Lacy did a great presentation. Thank you. I see your son is here too. And so thank you for everybody for coming, and see you guys next time. Miss Sandra, Miss Cynthia, I'm sure you guys will be on again. Nice meeting everybody. Have a great
Thank
Thank
you.
you
afternoon.
for having
Thank
me.
you,
No
Camille.
problem.
Good selection.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, Camille.
Thank you
I,
for coming.
take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.